Hello, boys and girls. Whew. What an exhausting week it has been, let me tell you. Well, the family video that is near my work, the one that I thought was alive and well, they too are closing as I suspected slash feared. But never fear, because I managed to pick up a whole lot of stuff for dirt cheap to take them off their hands, and I came away with some pretty amazing finds. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, my friends. That's right. I have a shitload of DVDs and Blu-rays at my feet that you can't see, but they all came from various places, not just Family Video. And I will get through them all in roughly chronological order. We got a lot to get through. That's why I have the extra big bottle of the drink of Unboxing Champions, because I'm going to need it. I'm going to need the throat lubrication, and I'm going to need the caffeine. So let's get going, shall we? Alright, so first up, so I did actually 2 trips to 2 different family videos. The one that's nearest to where I live, that's the one I'd been to twice before, and so I just did one last go at it just to make sure that there wasn't anything that I might have possibly wanted to pick up. And I did pick up a few things. Then the one that's nearest to my work, I picked up a ton. I picked up like 55 items for like $118 or something, which, like, imagine if I had got all those new, it would have been astronomical. So, I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal. And then there's just a few other things that I found, like just off of like eBay, at Manifest Discs, at a Food Lion of all places, and Amazon, Dollar Tree, just a few other little random things. So let's get through those short little random things, and then we'll get into the family video acquisitions. So first up, got a few eBay pickups. We got Machete and Machete Kills, which it's so funny to me to think about how this is the same character that we first got to know in the Spy Kids films, going on these adventures that are most decidedly not family friendly. So yeah, isn't that just amusing? But glad to have found these all with their respective slips. Machete Kills is actually harder to find than you'd think, and even harder to find with the slips, so I'm glad I found it. But yeah, I got them both, so how about that? And then you saw this movie already, Serena, but I sold the one that I got at the family video and got this one off of eBay with the slipcover, so I got to make some of my money back, and I ended up just paying for the slip at the end of the day. So yeah, glad that that got taken care of. And then this is one that my friend Jake from Septum Sin versus the World, I'll link their channel in the description. He sent this to me. It was the Hurt Locker. I didn't show it off because I wanted to wait for the slipcover to arrive and to give him that extra special shout out. But now that it has, thank you, Jake, for sending me the Hurt Locker, which I didn't have in the collection. It's a movie that I want to rewatch because I remembered seeing it in theaters and it went on to win Best Picture, but I remembered at the time, like, just not really caring for it, only because I just felt like it was just, at the time, like, I remembered thinking it was just kind of a series of things that happened, and it wasn't really, I didn't really get a sense of, like, a real through line with the plot or anything. But then again, it was based on real, or I think it was real articles that the screenwriter, Mark Bull, who was a journalist, that he wrote, so maybe that's part of why it feels kind of meandering. But I just remembered at the time, I was like, I just didn't really get why it was such a big deal. Now, this did make a star out of Jeremy Renner, and I think someone else big was in this too. Anthony Mackie, yeah, that's who I thought it was. Actually, there are a lot of Marvel people in here, I just realized, or future Marvel people. Jeremy Renner, who is Hawkeye, Anthony Mackie, who would play the Falcon, and, of course, Evangeline Lilly, who would play the Wasp. So, how about that? But yeah, it's one I want to revisit, because I remembered Catherine Bigelow's next movie, Zero Dark 30. I remembered I liked that a lot more. But which I don't have that in the collection yet, but I'll get it. But yeah, I want to rewatch that. No 4K of this yet, but maybe there will be someday. But yes, thank you, Jake, for sending that to me. I really appreciate it. Next up, I had a few things that you've seen before that I went to Manifest Discs, and they are nice enough to, with the used Blu-rays, if I ask for just the slipcovers, like if I have them already, they're nice enough to let me have them, assuming that I like transfer the used stickers onto the, things and just try to be clean with it, which I do. So you'll see some things that you've seen before, so like Battle of the Sexes, I got the slipcover for that. And actually, so you remember this didn't come with the DVD? Well, I managed to find the DVD separately at one of my family video trips, so I popped it in there. And it's not even like I'm necessarily going to watch the DVD, but it's like it says DVD on the top there. I hate it when it feels incomplete. And so, some of those I managed to take care of there. But yeah, you saw that already, but I just got the slip for that. Same with Dying of the Light. I got that slip at Manifest Discs. And Goodbye Christopher Robin, got the slip there, which, that looks pretty sweet. I still need to find the DVD of that. And then I got A Vigilante with Olivia Wilde, which that's a really cool looking slip. And then I had actually ordered this slipcover off of eBay, but then I saw it at Manifest and I was able to get it for free, so I just went ahead and canceled that order before it shipped out, so I saved myself like $7. And then got the slip for Top 5 here, but then it was really cheap, and the other one didn't have the DVD with it, so I just ended up getting this one again, and I'll sell the other copy I have. But this is such a great film. I want to see more Chris Rock directed films, because I'm a big Chris Rock fan, with his stand-up, with his acting, with his writing. Everything that he does I think is just great, and really, really looking forward to Spiral from the book of Saw, which he, I guess, was the person who developed that story, the story for the film. And it's funny because I know that they brought, like Lionsgate and Twisted Pictures, I know that they brought him on to kind of help to helm the kind of revitalized Saw series, which is interesting because I assume it's to try and get some of that Jordan Peele, comedian turned into horror icon kind of energy going for him. Except I think, honestly, Chris Rock and Saw, like, they may seem like a weird pairing, but to me, they actually make perfect sense. Because I think his stand-up has that kind of edge to it that Saw needs to have. So for me, it made perfect sense. And I do think it will allow for the series to go in a direction that isn't so, so focused on Jigsaw himself. It'll be in that same vein, but it'll allow it to go into new but related directions. And while I was at Manifest, I picked up a few like just really super cheap items, one of which was Enough is Enough! I have had it with these motherfucking snakes on this motherfucking plane! Finally got snakes on a plane, which now the case is kind of beaten up, but I can replace that pretty easily. So glad to finally have gotten this in the collection. I've wanted to see this for so long, because that was such a meme-worthy quote that everyone knows. And then another one that I wanted to see as soon as I saw the trailer, but I never did, was Surrogates here with this, I assume, very out-of-print slipcover here. And, I believe this was based on a comic, too. Yeah, graphic novel by Robert Venditti and Brett Weldell. I probably butchered both of their names. I'm sorry. But yeah, I heard good things about this one, and the trailer looked really cool. So yeah. But I always like finding these based on a comic movies that aren't really like superhero films, which I think is just cool. And then here's just some easy ones, super quick Dollar Tree pickups here. Some movie called Darkness Reigns with Casper Van Dien. It's a movie that Wild Eye Releasing put out, and they're actually putting out a movie called Faces of Fear, in which I have a segment. My segment's called Cooking with Human Blood. So, yep, so looking forward to that. And then another Dollar Tree one was the first season of the TV show version of Get Shorty, which I am eager to check out because I'm a big fan of the Get Shorty movie, which I still need to get in the collection, the Shout Select version. And so I'm curious to see what the TV series does, because it was originally a novel, and I don't know how faithful it is or isn't, but I'll find out. I do want to read the novel eventually. And then next up, we had two surprising acquisitions from a Food Lion of all places. Now, this was kind of a rural Food Lion, and I assume that the more rural ones, they probably do more in the way of like new and used Blu-rays and DVDs for cheap, because you will find that in more rural areas that they do some more of those combo things, because there's not as much in the way of selection in rural areas, when it comes to media and stuff. Like, there's a store, Ingles, there's a line of stores, they do like movie rentals there in the store, and it's just something organic that they created, and you can buy movies, you can rent them, but it's all kind of in-house, because their primary clientele is rural communities, so that makes sense. Same with Family Video, except of course they are closing down, at least the locations that are near me. But what did I find at this Food Lion, you may ask? Well, I'll tell you. I found the 3D version of 2014 Godzilla. No slipcover, but I know where I can find one. Or hopefully I know where I can find one. But, yeah, it's 2014 Godzilla, which I liked. I saw it in the theater. It's weird because this one got better reviews than Godzilla King of the Monsters, the sequel, which, I'll be honest, as a Godzilla fan, I thought King of the Monsters, I thought that blew this one completely out of the water. It gave me everything I always wanted to see as a Godzilla fan, in an American Godzilla film. Now, this was a good one to get us started, but, it wasn't amazing, I didn't think. But still worthy of having in the collection. Now, this does not have a 4K yet, but until then, be glad to have it in the collection in this form, and I will get the slipcover for it at some point. And then, I was shocked and that was only $5 for a 3D, which is pretty cool. And I assume because not a lot of people are using, they're kind of phasing out 3D Blu-rays, but, because not a lot of people have 3D televisions. I don't. But this is one that I found for $10 or $9.99 that it goes for way more expensive than this. At least it did when I've been looking for it. And that is the Frank Darabont collection with The Green Mile, The Majestic, and The Shawshank Redemption. 3 movies that most of us really, really love. I adore The Green Mile. I really dug The Majestic. I liked its kind of homage to Frank Capra, kind of old school Hollywood, especially with the poster for the film, which really evokes like those kind of Frank Capra looking posters, if I can find it. Yeah, so these are the original posters here. Look how I love anything that looks old school like that. I'm a big fan of. And it's funny, I've only ever seen The Shawshank Redemption once, and it was on TV, and that was many, many years ago. I have not rewatched it since, and for some people it's like their favorite movie ever, and I feel bad because it's like I've only ever watched it one time, but I will remedy that, especially now that I've got this amazing set back in the collection. But The Majestic was particularly underrated because this was one of Jim Carrey's more dramatic roles, and I think he's someone that he's so much of a better actor than a lot of people think or they give him credit for, and this was an example of that. I feel like he should have gotten a Best Actor nomination for Man on the Moon, and he should have gotten a Best Actor nomination for this. He is a much, much better dramatic actor than people think. I thought he did amazing in that, and I think this is a very underrated movie, and if anything, it's gotten much more of a following now than it did then, because it didn't get very many good reviews at the time, but I think it's great, and I think everyone I know loves the movie, so there you go. And of course, Green Mile is just a great non-horror Stephen King adaptation, same with The Shawshank Redemption. But yeah, I feel bad that I haven't watched it all the way through in such a long time. And then this was actually an Amazon acquisition that just came today, and that was the Vestron video of Little Monsters, which I've never seen, but I saw the back when I used to watch the Nostalgia Critic, when I was much younger and dumber. I remembered his review of this film and how much he hated it and whatever. That was my first exposure to it, but it was such that, you know, nowadays I've just gone back and I've looked at all those Nostalgia Critic reviews and critiques and stuff, and I'm just like, there was someone, I can't remember who, but it was some YouTuber who was like, Doug, do you even like movies, like, as an art form? And, you know, the thinking back to the kinds of his reasoning behind some of his reviews, I was like, this guy is just not smart, number one, and number two has really flawed reasoning, or just, like, I don't get where his head is at, or he'll just nitpick a movie apart and think that somehow constitutes criticism, and it isn't. But that being said, I basically looked at all of those reviews and, you know, all of his different clips taken out of context and stuff, and I just kind of threw that all away, and I'm just trying to start from scratch on a lot of this stuff. And so, yeah, picked that up, and I know it's got quite a cult following. That is it for the non-family video acquisitions. Now, the rest of them are going to be family video. So, for the very first one that I did, it was the one that's nearest to me. And that particular one, I found a few things that I already had, but I just got the other disc for it. So, like, you know, if it was like, here, I'll just show you. So, like, these are ones you've seen before, like Army of One here, but see, I got the DVD in there. And just that way I don't have to be, like, bothered by seeing, you know, Blu-ray, DVD, and it doesn't have the DVD. So, yeah, there's the gift. Just blaze through these pretty quick. House with the Clock in Its Walls, this one was kind of important because, as you know, with 4K discs, they tend to just put the movie on here, or maybe a special feature or two, but most of them are going to be on the other disc, and I assume that that's because the actual file sizes for the movies are probably much, much bigger for 4K than they are for Blu-ray or DVD. And then Molly's Game, same thing. I do need to track down the slipcovers for a lot of these, but those will happen eventually. And again, another 4K is by Dump Me. I gotta find that slip, but there's the Blu-ray disc. So yeah, those are just some of the easy ones to knock out right away. So here we go. So this is the first family video trip with brand new acquisitions that you haven't seen before. We're going to start with the Blu-rays because I actually got more DVDs with this particular haul, and you'll see why. But first up, this here is 300 Rise of an Empire. Now you'll notice that this is a really crappily printed case here, and there's a reason for that, because if you can see, it's just the Blu-ray disc, it's not the 3D version or anything like that. There's a good reason for that. It's because I'm a member of this website called Custom Maniacs, and that's where you can print out either I remembered I had a lot of unused credits and stuff for that website, but you can print out either scanned covers, or you can like the actual official covers, or you can print out customs. And I found quite a lot of cool custom covers for a lot of movies that I either have or want to get. And 300 Rise and Empire was one of them. There's this really cool one that I'm going to download. Well, no, I didn't download it yet. I will download it, and I will print it using the really nice glossy paper that hopefully replicates an official cover. And I cannot remember the exact name of that kind of paper, but I will look it up, and I'll just get a whole big bunch of it. And that way, for some of these ones that I found that have like this crappy reproduction artwork or whatever, I can just go the extra mile and get some cool custom artwork for it, because that makes it special and unique to me. Or in the case of something like Assassination here that's really sun damaged, could, you know, replace it that way. Now I think this one has a slipcover, so it's not quite as important in this case, But nonetheless, it's just good to know that I have that option, so it made me less afraid to get some ones that are more sun damaged than others. Generally, I still tried to get ones that were as close to, perfect as possible, but, with this kind of thing, like, normally this is more expensive than what I got it for. And it was the same, 2 for $3, and then a few were like 2 for $5, but these were mostly 2 for $3. And it's like, you just cannot beat those prices. They're unbeatable. And yeah, eager to see this. I like a lot of these. I guess this is like, yeah, I think this is a Korean film. A lot of these Well Go USA ones are from South Korea. But yeah, I think these are really cool whenever you get either martial arts films or just these other, I guess, I don't know what you call them, like Eastern action films, or like in this case, like a gangster film, or like you might have seen in an older video, The Good, the Bad, and the Weird. Just little things like that. They're very off the beaten track. That's how we like it around here. Next up, this one I know has a slipcover, and I was initially going to get the Canadian version of it, but then looking at this artwork, this is a rare instance where the American artwork is actually significantly cooler than the Canadian one, and that is for this movie called Free Fire with our dear Brie Larson, who is now Captain Marvel. And yeah, this artwork is a lot cooler, and but I do know that this has a slipcover for it. I'll have to track it down, but yeah, from executive producer Martin Scorsese, and I guess it's like a crime action comedy thing, I guess, and so yeah, eager to check it out. And yeah, Brie Larson, it's funny because like I never saw Short Term 12, which I guess was like her star-making role before Room, and then before she was in Kong Skull Island, and before she was in Captain Marvel and stuff. I never saw, well, I have Room in the collection now, but I never saw Short Term 12, but I will see it eventually. Next up is seems like the Western genre is being kept alive through the kind of more indie, more off the beaten path kind of in that world. There's this one called The Keeping Room with Sam Worthington and Britt Marling, Haley Steinfeld, Muna Otaru, and yeah, so it's this Western here, and it's from, says Draft House Films and Cinedigm, so that's cool, and it's that same kind of clear case that Night Moves had, if you recall from a previous video, and another reversible cover, so pretty cool. Normally those reversible covers, you see those with like Scream Factory or some of the other boutique labels, and I mean, I guess Cinedigm could technically count, but you don't really think of them that way normally. Next up, I've not seen this yet. I do want to see it, and I do want to find the slip, and that's Leatherface here, which I guess is the most recent Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, which this is the only one I have in the collection at present. I do want to get the other ones. That series, I know I think to a certain extent, I think a lot of us are kind of hoping for there to be like a big Scream Factory set of them. I know it's another series where the rights are kind of all over the place, so it's probably unlikely that that'll happen. But at any rate, I'll track them down. Yeah, there's just a lot of them, and some of them can be kind of expensive, but this one I managed to find for cheap because I just wanted to, at least get that started. Another one that's in a really obviously crappy, printed off a normal, ugly, awful printer paper is Maggie here, which I know that this has a slipcover. There might be a custom cover for this, for all I know. I really don't know. I'll have to look. But yeah, this was that one that I guess it was like a horror drama that Arnold Schwarzenegger did with Abigail Breslin. But yeah, see, this is the kind of thing I was trying to avoid, but again, it was so dirt cheap, and it's like, I bet I can find a cool custom cover for that. And if not, then I can find a scan and hopefully approximate it halfway decently. Next up, this is a movie that has Bradley... This has a lot of stars in it. This movie stars Bradley Cooper, Leslie Bibb, Tony Curran, Brooke Shields, Roger Bart, and Vinnie Jones. What could that be? It's this movie called The Midnight Meat Train. And Yeah, Bradley Cooper's in this, and it's apparently a Clive Barker adaptation. So how about that? Never seen it, never heard anybody talk about it. Just one of those random things you stumble upon, and you're like, how in the hell did that get made? Well, we'll find out, won't we? Next up, this is another one with a really shitty reproduction cover. Might be able to find a different cover for it, and that's a movie called No One Lives, which I remembered hearing about it because Chris Stuckman said he saw it at the Toronto International Film Festival premiere, and this is a WWE Studios release, which I can't remember which wrestler it has in it. Brodus Clay and Lindsay Shaw. Just Brodus Clay. Excuse me. Lindsay Shaw, it says, is from Pretty Little Liars. So, unless she had a WWE career, I don't know about. But yeah, so there you go. This is a later period Hammer film, which you saw the Woman in Black 1 and 2 that I have, and this is The Quiet Ones. I know that this has a slipcover. I wanted to see it just because I knew that it was a later period Hammer release, because I know that they resurrected the brand in recent days to try and do some more supernatural, atmospheric horror films that are more in that classical British Gothic tradition. So, eager to finally watch that one. Now, my friend at Media Freak Reviews, Donald Wills, he sent this to me initially, and then it was brand new and never opened, so I sold it, just trying to get some either profit or whatever, which I did. But I got it back in the following form, and there's a good reason for it, and that is RoboCop 2014, the remake. This just has the DVD, that just has the Blu-ray, but there's a really cool custom cover that I know of, and given that I'm gonna print off some of these, and get them in different cases and stuff, then that'll just help to kind of jazz it up. And I saw that movie in the theater, and I liked it. It wasn't the original's still better, but I mean, I thought that one, as far as remakes go, I thought it was pretty good. It was only a PG-13, but let me tell you, I thought it was surprisingly violent for a PG-13 film. Like, in other words, like, they didn't have to necessarily cut out as much as you would think that they would. Now, it doesn't have, like, the, blood splattering all over the place like RoboCop, the original, did, and it didn't have the, satire or anything like that, but as far as remakes go, you could do a whole lot worse than that, I think. I need energy. We are not even anywhere close to being done yet. It's nuts. Next up is see, some of these stickers came off better than others did. This one, unfortunately, did not, so I'm going to have to... I think I have some Goo Gone somewhere that maybe that'll do it. I hate the adhesive residue that stickers leave behind. This is a movie called Scorched Earth with Gina Carano, and it's funny because I always got her mixed up with Gina Gershon, and they're not the same person, although they look similar enough to where I can see why I would have made that, why that would have, their faces and names, why they would have merged together into my brain. And I think this might have slipped, but I'll have to look for it. And I know that Gina Carano is sort of this emerging female action star in something like this, and Haywire, In the Blood, and I believe she played, she was in Deadpool, if I recall. Next up is a movie, I guess this is like a dark fantasy period horror film called Solomon Kane, and this is one that I always wanted to see whenever I saw it in any of the used media stores that I frequented. The price point just wasn't low enough for me to want to take a plunge relative to my interest level, so there you go. Finally got it. See, that's the thing, like, so many of these things, it's like, how low does the price point have to be for you to be willing to take the plunge? And that's usually, you have to gauge it relative to your interest level and your threshold for how much you'd want to spend, that sort of stuff. And that's why I tend to get a lot of the ones that I do at the prices that I tend to get them at, because it's like, I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I'd like to see that, or I wouldn't mind having that in the collection, but I wouldn't want to pay anything astronomical. So that's usually why I get the ones that I get from the places that I get them at. And then last up for the Blu-rays for that first family video trip is The Trust with our dear Nicolas Cage and Elijah Wood. This does have a slip, and I will track it down, but it's part of our getting all of Nicolas Cage's films in the collection. And so that's all for the Blu-rays. Now, I had a surprising number of DVDs that I got, and there's a reason for it. You can probably assess what that reason is as I go through these. Because I only ever really like to get DVDs when there's no other choice, because I tend to like to get things in the best possible format. But in this case, it's like, what are you going to do? Now, first up, I guess you'd say, I was going to say controversial film time, but I guess you can say controversial person / special / however you want to say that. Let's just say controversial special time. Fine, we'll just go with that. But it is Bill Cosby Far From Finished live in concert. And okay, so let me just be real here. Bill Cosby was before my time. I never watched The Cosby Show, never watched any of his movies, never heard his records, anything like that. Now, I know that he was so celebrated in his day, and The Cosby Show in and of itself did a lot for race relations in America at the time and that sort of thing. So, I mean, regardless of everything that has come out about the man since then, I guess that the show itself, the work, the things that not just he, but like the people around him, that they all put their heart and soul into, that those things should, still be allowed to inspire people and should be allowed to be good work, good TV shows, good things, in and of themselves. Reason I got this is because, well, I hadn't really seen much of his stand-up, and because the title, Far From Finished, it just made me smile with so much. It's the kind of delicious irony that you just cannot, it's like you can't script it, it's like it's too perfect. And so this was 2013, that's the date on the back of this, and it's like, just so, I love it. It's just the irony is just so delicious and palpable that I was like, I gotta do that. And yeah, I remembered actually, so I used to work at around here, it's the Blumenthal Performing Arts Center, and he was scheduled to actually come to our venue. It was, I believe it was the timing of it was meant to be the timing of either this stand-up special or one like it. It was that same picture, I remembered. And he was supposed to come, I think he was either supposed to come physically, or it was supposed to be like a big screening of the special or whatever. And then that's when all the shitstorm hit, I want to say it was early 2015, something like that. And when we actually did have Hannibal Buress, the other stand-up comic who basically called Bill Cosby out and kind of got the shitstorm a-brewing, and everything just came to light. We actually did have him come physically, and that was just before all of this. So again, it's an interesting confluence of events, but I wanted to grab this up because I was like, I would never pay brand new price or anything for that. And it was just like, come on, with a title like that, it's like, come on, that's something that you just can't reproduce. The irony is just too palpable, I think. Next up, we got a couple of Chris Rock stand-up comedy DVDs. They're actually, unfortunately, they're pretty horrifically sun-damaged, and again, it's like one of those things where these do normally command, unfortunately, they can be rather pricey normally, and so that's kind of why I was like, yeah, I don't like the fact that they're sun-damaged, but what can you do? But these are in alphabetical order. I haven't arranged these in chronological order or anything like that, but it's bigger and blacker. With this is the old school snap cases that Warner Brothers, which this is HBO, but Warner Brothers New Line, they would put these out, and I don't know why, because I've always hated these things. but part of it was like I can look for like a decent like scan of the real undamaged cover, and do something to kind of remedy the situation if I really want to to do that. And then Bring the Pain, which this I believe is his very first stand-up special, which I love this one, absolutely love it. And I remembered it was Howard Stern was a big fan of this particular special as well. And for good reason, because it's really funny. And I love Chris Rock as a comedian and as a actor, writer, director. I mean, I think he's extremely talented, and can't wait to see more from him. And I just realized that there's this little... I finally figured out how to get those little stickers off of the discs. You just have to use your fingernail and a lot of elbow grease to get them off of there. And any that are that I might have missed, I'll have to just grab them as I get them, or as I find them. But this one is Kill the Messenger, and this was shows in South Africa, London, and New York. And as you can see, not only does the sun damage the covers themselves, but the sun can damage these cases here, because this thing is like falling apart. But again, so cheap, it's like, why not? And cases can be replaced, covers can be replaced, and especially stand-up comedy ones, they can be either dirt cheap or they can be more expensive than you would think, and so that's why, I wanted to grab them. Next up, you recall seeing Lava Lantula in the collection. It's behind me, but then look at that, To Lava, To Lantula, the sequel. And so I remembered in the video where I showed off the first one, I remembered saying that I thought that it was in the same continuity as Sharknado. That's kind of true. Not only in the sense that Ian, I don't know if is it Ian or Ian? I've heard it as Ian, but I'll just say Ian for right now. Ian Ziering, who plays the main character in the Sharknado series, actually shows up in the first Lava Lantula, so that kind of makes it in continuity in a sense, or at least tangentially, as like a spin-off or whatever. But yeah, so that's To Lava, To Lantula, which is obviously a take off of Too Fast, Too Furious in terms of the title. And then we got some more stand-up comedy DVDs here. Lewis Black and God We Rust, which I've seen a little bit of Lewis Black, not a whole lot, but that's part of why I wanted to go for this one, because I was like, well, when else am I going to do that outside of like Amazon Prime or whatever? And it's like, well, who knows how long certain things are going to be on whatever streaming service. I don't trust it. You never should trust that certain things are going to be on streaming forever. Lewis Black, Stark Raving Black, and I think there is some sun damage on these slips, but yeah, like wow, that one's really sun damaged, but there's some sun damage on here. They kind of vary though, because like there's this one, and then there's, so like that one's kind of orangey, but it's not too bad in comparison to other ones. But again, some of these, it's like I wouldn't necessarily go out of my way to go too crazy with it. Otherwise, Lewis Black's Root of All Evil, and again, I'm just mostly doing it to try and expand my comedic horizons. Best movie ever made, Mega Shark vs. Colossus, part of the Mega Shark series from our dear friends, The Asylum, which I need to get the rest of the Mega Shark films in the collection. I haven't watched this one yet, but this one always stuck out to me because I thought the cover was really cool, and I like the idea of a giant megalodon shark versus a giant robot. It's like, come on, that's just gold right there. Why isn't the Academy, just showering it with every award that they have? Next up, I do remember seeing this film. I don't remember if I finished it, but I remembered liking what I saw of it, and that's a movie called Rise of the Dinosaurs, which there are some dinosaur movies that go direct to DVD or Blu-ray that that they have some surprisingly good aspects to them. Like there's a movie called The Dinosaur Project which is a found footage dinosaur film, and So there are some halfway decent dinosaur films that are not Jurassic Park or whatever. So definitely interesting to check those out. And then we got a movie that I remembered hearing a lot of. I remembered hearing some, rumblings about it back in the days when comedy was, explicitly trying to push every boundary possible, and it was trying to push it against like the, like the Bush era evangelical conservatives slash neocons. Back in those days, you had something like Sarah Silverman, Jesus is Magic, that would come out and ruffle different kinds of feathers than comedians that still have their teeth. The few comedians that still have their teeth, they'd be pushing the envelope against different people these days. But I remembered hearing about this and how it kind of caused a bit of a stir at the time. Now, I like Sarah Silverman when she's been in movies that I've seen. Like, I was rewatching There's Something About Mary the other day, and I forgot that she actually has a really small part in that. And, of course, she is the voice of Vanellope von Schweetz in the Wreck-It Ralph films and stuff like that. But eager to dive more formally into her stand-up. And then I actually, so this is a very underrated comedian, Stephen Wright. Stephen Wright's pretty funny because he has the most boring voice in the world, really monotone, and it sounds just like this, almost like Ben Stein, but funnier. And I remember when he came, when I worked at the Blumenthal, I actually marketed his stand-up that he did. It was like a one-night only thing, but I marketed it and it sold out, and I was very pleased with that. And I think he's a very underappreciated comedian, very funny, very just droll, and if you recall the movie The Swan Princess, my friends call me Speed. He was Speed the turtle. And then last up for the DVDs for that particular family video run, we have a movie that I've never heard of called Wonderland, and I guess it's a psychedelic horror film or something, but I just got it because look how cool that cover is. And, I think that horror films about, drugs or whatever, I think that's kind of an underutilized subgenre of horror. Because let me tell you, drugs of whatever kind, illegal, prescription, whatever, they can be pretty scary if you misuse them. So that catches us up to the present day. That's right. Now we get into all of the things that I found at the one by my work, the family video that was closing there. So we're going to do this a bit backwards here, just because the DVDs are in front of me. We're going to look at these first. I know, we're getting all weird and wacky. We're getting crazy. We're getting a little out of control here. We need another sip of the drink of Unboxing Champions before we continue. Alright, so let's get into it. We got a couple of Asylum films in here, first of which is The Adventures of Aladdin, which came out to capitalize on Disney's live-action remake of Aladdin. And why is that? Well, it's because the story of Aladdin is public domain. Nobody owns it. Anybody can make an Aladdin film. And it's always interesting to see what the Asylum does with these things, because you can learn a surprising amount about filmmaking on the indie level from mockbusters. And even if they're not, like, all that great, I mean, they can at least be amusing. But yeah, I just think that you can learn a lot about indie filmmaking when you see what the Asylum does. They've never lost money on a movie, which I think is pretty impressive. And it's funny, on the back here it says directed by Glenn Campbell. Not that Glenn Campbell, who is dearly departed now. Rest in peace. Next up is a movie called The Bronx Bull, which I looked it up, and I guess it's DVD only. It's not on Blu-ray, but there's a bit of legal controversy with this because the intention was for there to be a sequel to Raging Bull, Martin Scorsese's, sports drama masterpiece from 1980. The idea was going to be to try and make a film called Raging Bull 2, but not with Scorsese behind it or anything like that, and I guess it was just going to cover different aspects of Jake LaMotta's life. And I guess there was some kind of legal kerfuffle back and forth, but then this did finally come out, but under the title The Bronx Bull. So, yeah, it's always neat to kind of compare and contrast different takes on someone's life. It'd be kind of like, I think there were other, if I recall, there might have been other Howard Hughes movies like about his life before The Aviator or after, or like I know in The Rocketeer you had Terry O'Quinn before Lost. He played Howard Hughes in there. It wasn't a Howard Hughes film, but nonetheless it's worth mentioning. I was eager to see what that does, and we got quite a lot of stars in here. William Forsythe, Paul Sorvino, Tom Sizemore, Joe Mantegna, and Natasha Henstridge, so that's pretty cool. And then next up, I know a friend who I think knows the person who did this movie, Joseph P. Kelly, and that is Clown Motel. And why did I get that? Because I like clowns, that's right. Most people hate clowns, and it's one of those things where when I was a kid, I wasn't like afraid of clowns, but I didn't especially like them. They kind of made me uneasy, and nowadays, as a horror person, that's why I love clowns, because they make people uneasy. And I've played a creepy clown myself, so it's just fun to be in makeup and to terrify people just from having them look at you. I don't know how rare this is. I tried to look at it. Tried to look it up on Amazon to see if there was a Blu-ray of it or if the DVD was rare or whatever. I couldn't find a Blu-ray of it, and the DVD didn't seem like it was available when I looked, so I assume that means maybe it's kind of rare. I don't know. Any anime fans out there should tell me whether or not it is, but it's a movie called Millennium Actress, done by Satoshi Kon, who did Perfect Blue, which I really love, and actually put out by DreamWorks, which is interesting, at least in the United States. And it says Grand Prize Award winner, Japan Agency of Cultural Affairs Media Arts Festival, which, man, that's a mouthful, isn't it? But yeah, Satoshi Kon, so how about that? And yeah, I have my friend Jake, who sent me the Hurt Locker. He's like the big anime expert that I know of, so I'll have to ask him. Because I thought I heard us talking about it the other day, but I could be misremembering that. Next up, we got the very lovely and very seductive-looking Joey King, who I remembered having a bald head in The Act, that Hulu exclusive series, but it's a movie called Summer '03, which that'll be interesting because I know she's kind of a rising star, and I remembered the summer of '03 very well. I was 11 years old at the time, but I remembered it very well, so I'll be interested to see how this represents that period in our nation's history, because we had just started the war in Iraq, so we were in for the long haul. Then we got two other Asylum films to close off the DVD section of this haul. First up is The Young Cannibals, which I was very interested just from the title, because I'm very interested in cannibalism in films. And I guess it's not a knockoff of anything per se, but it says on the back, a flesh-chomping nightmare in the tradition of Feast and Pumpkinhead. But this came out 2019. Yeah, it wasn't like a deliberate mockbuster of anything. So I guess it was, because the Asylum does do original films too. But generally they try to piggyback off of the success of a pre-existing film. What I love about these is that they'll put that in quotes, but they won't attribute the quote to anyone, so it's obviously just something that they made up, and I just find that amusing. But yeah, monster looks cool, cannibalism is interesting to me, so there you go. I'm a simple man, what can I say? And speaking of which, it's funny, like, I never was really into zombies all that much, but I think with the corona age that we live in now, I think that it's kind of made me interested in zombies in a way that I never was before, and we got some zombie Spring Breakers action for you. So we got your zombies, we got your girl on the raft, we got your parodying of the Jaws poster, you know, we got some loveliness all the way around in this beautiful island. It's like, you know, what's not to love, really? And it's from our dear friends, the Asylum, the, you know, bastions of quality. Alright, so that is all for the DVDs, and now we get to the pièce de résistance, which I butchered the pronunciation of that. I'm sorry, French speakers. But yeah, these are all the Blu-rays. There's quite a few of them, so we're going to try and knock this out. My apologies for the length of the video, but that's what happens when you have a lot of stuff to talk about. And again, a lot of these are things I haven't seen, so hopefully, you know, I'm not bogging you down with too much explanation. First up, R.I.P. Chadwick Boseman. Moment of silence. Moment's gone. Alright. Chadwick Boseman, very sad what happened to him. Didn't even know that, you know, that he was fighting that battle with colon cancer, but I'm so sad to see him go. There you go. Wakanda forever. There we go. It's hard to do when you're holding this at the same time, but yeah, this was from our dear friends, the Russo brothers, produced by them. It was Anthony and Joe Russo, and I don't even know, I'll be honest, I need to look it up, but I don't even remember what all they did before Captain America, the Winter Soldier, which I believe was their entry into the MCU, but I don't even remember what they did before that, but boy did they jump in and really take the MCU into the stratosphere even more than what Joss Whedon had started, which is pretty amazing. And so yeah, 21 Bridges there, which I was really curious to see what this had in store even before he tragically died recently, just because I was just interested to see what the Russos would do outside of the MCU. So there you go. But yeah, I wanted to grab this up because, oh yeah, and by the way, so if you see it with, see how it has the DVD and the Blu-ray in there? It's because I bought it twice, basically, because if you buy this on Blu-ray, it only comes with the Blu-ray at the family video. So I basically bought it twice just because, well, this already had the slip there, and I didn't want it to be without the DVD. This actually did come with the digital code, which I sold just tonight, which is pretty cool. So yeah, it's about as complete as you could get. But again, it's like, in those instances where I can get a complete package, I want to, because that way I don't have to, it'd be a lot harder to track down just the DVD for a specific movie and then to just get it right then and there. Next up, there's a little bit of sun damage on this, but it's not too bad, and that's a movie called 30 Minutes or Less, which I've never seen, but it's from our dear Ruben Fleischer, who did Zombieland, and he did Venom, and he did Gangster Squad. So eager to see what all is up with this. Heard good things about it. Again, trying to expand my horizons with more modern comedies, which I've tended to avoid, because I have a very sick sense of humor that most people wouldn't necessarily appreciate. It tends to be very dark and very fucked up, hence why I love trauma movies, and hence why I love Meet the Feebles. That's my favorite Peter Jackson film, which needs to come to Blu-ray, goddammit. But yeah, so eager to try to expand my horizons a bit. Next up is a movie that I remembered that I really loved, saw it in theaters. I know that the camera shook, I don't care. And it's a movie called The Big Short. I do need the slipcover for this, but this is a really good film. I was impressed that they were able to distill down all of these really complex financial theory and financial ideas as to why there was a bubble that burst in the first place that led to the housing crisis and then eventually the Great Recession. And it is a true story that these people were able to short the market and were able to make this big, massive profit as a result. I'm not an economist. I don't remotely pretend to understand what they're talking about, and that's what I thought was so ingenious about it was that that's when they did the like they had Selena Gomez and they had Margot Robbie in a hot tub, which that alone was worth the price of admission. They had them in there like explaining some of these economic theories and trying to basically keep your interest, despite the fact that these theories can be really economic theory can be really not exciting cinematically. So they basically did everything that they could to make it exciting for the average person. And again, Margot Robbie in a hot tub, that alone, that could be all that the movie was, and I would go see it. And yeah, Adam McKay and Charles Randolph did the screenplay, and they actually won an Oscar for adapted screenplay, and Adam McKay directed this. I really, really like seeing these directors that are mostly known for their mainstream comedies going in and doing drama, because they've really impressed me. That one certainly did. And then next up is a movie that you may recall me having the slipcover in the collection without the movie The Bling Ring. Well, there it is. And now I know that it's the American Lionsgate one, and this is the Canadian one from Entertainment One, but whatever. Wanted to see this when it came out. It was a Sofia Coppola film with Emma Watson, but yeah, now I get the chance to do that. And again, based on a real case of people that broke in and stole stuff from celebrities, including Kim Kardashian, if I recall. So yeah, that'll be interesting. But glad to have finally gotten to put my slipcover with the actual movie, because I don't like having rogue slipcovers that don't have movies with them. Speaking of our dear Margot Robbie, we got Bombshell, and we got some other who's who of beautiful blondes. We got Nicole Kidman, and we got Charlize Theron as well, based on the real story of the horrific sexual harassment and kind of fraternity bro culture that I guess did go on at Fox News, and I think might still be going on based on those reports that we've been hearing about Tucker Carlson. No slipcover for this, but this is a pretty common movie to find, so I can track that slipcover down easily, but wanted to see this because I think that the real story of the behind the scenes of Fox News, like the drama that continues to unfold, and all of the really serious stuff that went down during the Roger Ailes era, which I don't even know if they have. Again, I don't know much about the plot of this film specifically, but I know about the larger story in general because I've seen the documentary Outfoxed from 2004. I've seen that, and I've also just done a lot of reading into Roger Ailes, and anybody that came from a remotely conservative family, it's like, especially one like mine that the Fox News was on 24/7. It's like you know who these people are. You get the gist pretty readily. Again, speaking of a comedy director, Jay Roach, who has done a lot of kind of politically themed films, including Game Change, the one about the McCain-Palin campaign from 2008, which is that was an HBO film. Really, really good, though. Highly recommend that one, too. Eager to check this out. But, yeah, anything that Margot Robbie's in, I'll be there. I'm loyal like that. Next up is a movie that I'll have to track down the slipcover for this one. I think it's kind of hard to find, but it's a movie called Charlie Countryman with our dear Shia LaBeouf, who seems to have kind of lost his mind, but at the same time, he also is doing a lot of things that are really avant-garde. And on the one hand, I admired the fact that he's doing that, and he's kind of out of that kind of being forced into being like this mainstream action star, like in the Transformers films and in Eagle Eye and Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Like, he seemed to be really kind of shoved down our throats in that world, but he wasn't really. I mean, he had his appeal for sure, but it's like, it seems like his style, his passion seems to be going for these more off the beaten path roles, so I admire his decision to do that, but I also know that he's kind of in a similar boat to someone like Kanye West in the sense that they both seem to have several screws loose, and like he's done a lot of things that are very I can only both of them actually, but they both done these things that I can only describe as being rather prima donna ish and kind of drama queen antics, and it's different than like a Nicolas Cage who, outside of his like overspending and a few incidents here and there, like it just seems to be on another level that I'm like, you should probably get some help. Next up, this is a movie that I guess has a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, but fuck Rotten Tomatoes, they don't know anything. It's just a compendium, an aggregate of what most people or most critics think, and that assumes that you place any value on what critics say or on what the public says. I don't place any value on either. I choose to make up my own mind, and I really love Jim Carrey, which is why I got Dark Crimes. Now I know that there is a slipcover for this, and I think it's relatively easy to find, but again, I'm really curious to see Jim Carrey do darker roles and more dramatic roles, so there you go. Simple as that. Next up, this is the direct-to-video Doom film, Doom Annihilation, and I've not finished the Dwayne Johnson Doom, and this one only has the DVD. Now, there was this cool, actually there was two custom covers that I found that were like these, they were like a combo pack of the first one and this one. So the fact that this only comes with the DVD, only comes with the Blu-ray, that's actually not too bad, because I'm planning to get the disc only for Doom 1, put it in there, and get the custom cover in there, and then I have something that's unique to me. And that way I don't have to worry about tracking down the DVD, tracking down the slipcover, all that nonsense. Next up, I've not seen the Guillermo del Toro ones of these, and I've not seen the two direct-to-video animated ones, and I've not seen this one, but I figured I might as well collect these so I can boost up the collection of superhero / comic book films, which you could say, I think you could call Hellboy a superhero, but certainly a very, very different one than what you're used to, and Dark Horse and all that stuff, so not Marvel, not DC. This was the 2019 reboot of Hellboy, starring David Harbour from Stranger Things. Heard nothing but horrible things about this, but this is another one where it did have the slipcover at Family Video. Now, when you look for a 4K, it just comes with the 4K, so I had to get the Blu-ray separately, but again, it was so dirt cheap that it was like, even with all of that being said, it was like, if I'm ever going to take the plunge on this thing, this is a good time to do it. But that's at least a cool slipcover, so yeah, there you go. I have not actually read any of the Hellboy comics, but I should, because I'm a big comic book person. Next up, this is a Tom Hanks film that I remembered seeing in Target, and I was like, I've never heard of this movie, and I guess it wasn't that widely known or distributed or whatever, and it's a movie that, and again, I know it has a slipcover, I just will need to track it down, but I think it's relatively easy to find. A movie called A Hologram for the King, and it's about Alan Clay, a recently divorced American businessman who is sent overseas to pitch a state-of-the-art hologram teleconferencing system to the king. And I assume, I don't know if it's the king of like Saudi Arabia or something, but it's in the desert there, so I'd assume it's, if not Saudi Arabia, then someplace very much like that. So, interesting stuff. Tom Hanks he's someone that, because he's so wealthy and with so much prestige and everything, he can afford to do like one movie a year or one movie every couple years, which is a luxury he didn't have in the early days. In the early days, he basically had to take any role that he could get, which is the case for a lot of actors, but the power to say no is a very important thing for people in that position. Next up, so we talked about Shia LaBeouf, and he was in a Lars von Trier film called Nymphomaniac, which I need to get the director's cut version of that, the one that's like 4 hours long. But right after Nymphomaniac, Lars von Trier did The House That Jack Built with our dear Matt Dillon, and which speaking of There's Something About Mary, he was in that, and had the slipcover here, and it's a Scream Factory release, and this actually has the both discs with it, the theatrical cut and the director's cut. And I guess that it did that because, well, it was the same format. It wasn't another format, so they wanted to have it complete, which is good. That way I didn't have to pay for it twice or anything like that. But I think that's pretty cool that we get to... I've heard really good things about this film. I like Lars von Trier a lot. I think that he's someone that he really... he goes balls to the wall. He really pushes the envelope. He does stuff that most people are too cowardly to do. And there's like, if you look on the back here, there's like 10 billion film companies here. And I think that's because his films are so controversial, I think, and so like pushing of the boundaries. I think he manages to get the funding for his films spread out over like... There's like American companies, there's a Swedish one, there's a Norwegian one, there's all of these companies from all over the world, all over Europe, and I think that just helps to spread the cost around, and that way he can do these really edgy films, and no one company has to endure all of the cost, and that's part of why you get so much safe, kind of regurgitated crap coming from the mainstream. It's because movies are just so fucking expensive that if you spend a lot of money and you get stars in it, and obviously they have their salaries and those can be pretty exorbitant, then you have to make a lot of money back. And of course, when you do that, then you have to say, okay, what's marketable, what's going to appeal to people, what's going to be safe, and then it's going to be stuff that they've seen before, and it just kind of snowballs into this thing that might have started off as a really original, edgy idea, and then it kind of became something a little too safe, and then they wonder why it doesn't do well. But that's a good way to do it. You either keep your budget small, and or you spread it out over a lot of companies like that, and that way you don't have to quite make back so much, like so many of these astronomical amounts, and that way you can do films that are more edgy, more thought-provoking, films that really make an impact in the way that you want, and that way you can stand out. And I mean, look at S. Craig Zahler. His films are not too expensive, but they have a vision. They have things about them that kind of shock some people, but they make an impact in the way that the artist wants. So, that's just a good way to do it. And I would recommend that to anybody that wants to make films and wants to make films that have something to say. And films that, have things to say that a lot of people won't necessarily want to hear. Because, if you just want to please everybody, then what's the point? Might as well, be a yes man at some company somewhere and not have any integrity. But anyway, trying to spread out here. Next up, we got a movie called, another Gina Carano action film called In the Blood. And this one, I know it has a slip, but as you can see, I had to get it twice there, but that's okay. Eager to check that out. She seems like she's a pretty cool action star there. Next up, oh yeah, I forgot to mention, we talked about our dear Margot Robbie in The Big Short, but I forgot to mention that our dear Karen Gillan is in The Big Short as well. She has a kind of small role in there. And then she's also in this movie called In the Valley of Violence with Ethan Hawke and John Travolta. This also has a slipcover. This is like a lesser known, but I think pretty well reviewed Western, which is cool. And yeah, she's in this film, so eager to support, these people that are doing things that are a little bit more off the beaten track. That seems to be a common phrase with me, isn't it? Next up, got another Nicolas Cage film, and guess what? The other Gina Gershon, with this movie called Inconceivable, and I believe that there is a slip for this. I'll have to look for it. And it's got Nikki Whalen, who I remembered from she was in Hall Pass, that Farrelly Brothers film, and I was like, whew, she's Australian, and I don't know what it is, but like, seemed a lot of my like top tier choices seem to be Australian girls, and I don't know why. But and we got Faye Dunaway in here as well. But yeah, interesting stuff. Part of the old Nicolas Cage collection. Next up, super controversial film, but not for any domestic reasons, but very much for foreign reasons. And why is that? It's because it's The Interview, baby. That's right. This does have a slipcover, I think, but I think it's really hard to find, but I'll have to look for it. But as we all know, this was super controversial, not in the United States, of all places, but in North Korea itself, because Kim Jong-un and his people got wind of it, and they had their hacking group hack Sony's emails, and, it was a pretty significant act of cyber terrorism, but that's also how we learned about Scott Rudin and what's-her-face, can't remember her name, but the people that were big at Sony, that they were exchanging a lot of emails that had some racist jokes about then President Barack Obama, and you had a lot of emails that got exposed surrounding some of the talks between Sony and Marvel Studios at the time when they were negotiating the idea of sharing the rights to Spider-Man, which thankfully happened. Just different little things like that came to mind. But yeah, it was so interesting because Sony would not release this in mainstream theaters, and actually some independent theaters chose to show it, and then it went to Blu-ray and to streaming and stuff. Went there pretty quickly. It was unprecedented, I thought, and it was one of those things where I was like, it was one of those things where I remembered when they were talking about, pulling it or whatever. I was like, as a freedom of speech guy, like, I'm a big proponent of that. At the same time, like, if there was gonna be like a credible threat, which nothing ever came of it, I think partially because Sony caved in, but it was one of those things where, like, when you're dealing with people that are that nuts, it's like, and people that they're not bluffing or whatever, then I guess again it would depend on if there was a credible national security threat or whatever, but I was very much a proponent of, well, get the art out there, but at the same time I was like, well, if indeed anything did happen as a result, then it's like, that the public opinion would be like, oh, why didn't they pull the movie? Why did they sit idly by and let this happen? Because again, public opinion is fickle like that, and irrational and illogical. Next up, unfortunately, just the 4K for this, but I'll track down the other discs and the slip, and that's Kong Skull Island, which I really like this film. I was impressed, because I was expecting kind of a tired retread of what we already saw in, like, Peter Jackson's King Kong, and in the original King Kong, and 1976 King Kong, all these different things. But no, and if anything, this was pretty fresh. I like to call this movie Apocalypse Kong, because it's basically Apocalypse Now, but with King Kong in it. And in fact, the posters and stuff like make pretty explicit references to Apocalypse Now, and it's set in the 70s, during Vietnam and everything. And you got Samuel L. Jackson playing like this really obsessed military person trying to basically stare down Kong. And I liked all the supporting characters in here. I really liked. I liked how, like, Brie Larson played a good, like, photographer / journalist. Tom Hiddleston, who is not really an action hero in, like, the conventional sense. I like seeing him play that kind of character, but he plays against type. John C. Reilly, he plays this kind of a little mentally unstable, kind of war-torn, guy who was kind of stranded on Skull Island. Had some pretty interesting monsters in here, and also Kong himself is really interesting because he's much bigger. He's actually Godzilla sized already, because the actual King Kong in the original film and in Peter Jackson's version is significantly smaller than what what his size is. And if he wasn't this size already, then they'd have had to find a way to beef him up somehow. But yeah, he's already Godzilla size in this one, and he's actually fully bipedal. He's not like he walks on all fours and occasionally gets on his hind legs, like in Peter Jackson's version. Where in Peter Jackson's version, he's more like an actual gorilla that happens to be large, but here he's a little bit more humanoid in this one. But I like the fact that this did not retread the same ground, and if anything, it did a lot of stuff that I really liked that was new. And so yeah, I really like this one. It actually, I would say, out of all the MonsterVerse movies so far, the Warner Brothers / Legendary Pictures MonsterVerse films, I think this one's my favorite. Because again, I like new stuff, and I don't like retreads. Next up, this is a movie that I guess didn't really get that good of reviews, except Roger Ebert actually gave it 4 stars. He really liked this film, and that's a movie called Lakeview Terrace, with Samuel L. Jackson and Patrick Wilson, who I really like, and Kerry Washington. And yeah, he gave it 4 stars, and I remembered it didn't really get that great of reviews, but I always wanted to see it because I thought it looked kind of neat. And yeah, so again, the price point was low enough to where I was like, yeah, I'll take a plunge there. Next up, another one I haven't seen, but I like Viola Davis and our dear Jennifer Lopez, and that is Lila and Eve, and it's like I guess like a revenge action film there. So yeah, Viola Davis, we all know how good she is, and I think Jennifer Lopez is really showing her acting talent in some of these later period films that she's doing, because she's still obviously super famous and influential and stuff, but it's one of those things where she's got enough like prestige now that she doesn't like have to be in like she doesn't have to be in a movie necessarily that's like The Wedding Planner or Gigli or any of these things that are meant to be like, oh, here's the pop diva of the day that's brand new, and here's her new movie. It's like she can just be known as like an actress, like formally. And apparently she was really good in that movie Hustle. Was it Hustle or Hustlers? One of those two titles. Apparently she was really good in that. Then we got, you remember Monsters, that Gareth Edwards film before he did his version of Godzilla that we saw, and the sequel to Monsters called Dark Continent, so there you go. I don't know if this has a slip or not, but seemed like a good time to grab up that sequel. Next up, we got... Oh boy. Now, I've seen a lot of bad movies in my day. You have to, because how can you know what a bad movie is unless you've seen some of the worst movies ever made? A lot of people will tell you, oh, that's the worst movie I've ever seen, and I always roll my eyes because I'm like, you have no idea what bad is. Now, on a technical level, this movie that I'm about to show you is not... Technically, it's not the worst I've ever seen, although it's not that good relative to who made it. But in terms of potential squandered, in terms of disappointment and just outright horrificness relative to all of the talent that's assembled, in those terms, this is by far the worst movie I've ever seen in my life, and it is just insufferable to sit through, and that is movie 43. Now look at all of these people that are in it. I mean, this is like jam-packed with stars, like really, really big stars in front of and behind the camera. I could spend like hours talking about why this film doesn't work and all of the really great people that I genuinely love that they roped into this thing, and even like the people that they like had as the writer directors who I normally love. Just how did you get all these talented people together to make this movie that is just so insufferable to sit through? It's so bad and so unfunny and so like, how on earth how did this cast, like, this should be like the Lawrence of Arabia of comedies, and yet it's so bad. And Lawrence of Arabia, that might be a bad example, like it's because it's an anthology comedy, so that wouldn't really work, but like this should be so much better than it is, and it's just insufferable to sit through. And that's not, like, I love just about everybody in here, to one degree or another. I love the people behind the camera, and there's like, okay, there's one or two segments in here that, you know, it's like, you know, that it could work if they had done some rewrites and stuff, but like, just there are so many that they're just like one joke premises that are nailed into the fucking ground, and I could spend like 2 hours talking about this movie, but I got it because it's one of those things where it's like, if you've got Citizen Kane in your collection, you got Casablanca, you got Lawrence of Arabia, you got like the cream of the absolute crop, you gotta know what a bad movie is. You know, you need to have a good, appropriate frame of reference. So every time that you say, oh, that was so terrible, then you hold up a movie like this, and it puts you into the correct perspective once again. And, you know, it's like, it's one of those things where if I ever feel especially masochistic, I'll subject myself to as much of that movie as I can stand. Oh man. That requires a drink in and of itself. We're getting to the end, I promise. Next up, The Osiris Child, which never heard of it, or I know I heard of it, but I never saw it, but I wanted to check it out. I'll have to find the slipcover for it. I'll have to find the slipcover for this piece of shit, too, at some point. Not exactly in a rush. Next up, this is a movie that I wanted to see this in theaters, but I never did, but it looks so cool, and that was a movie called Overlord, with the slipcover, in 4K, Nazis, or actually it's, from producer J.J. Abrams, and it's like just as World War II is like on its last legs, like 1945, but it's like Nazi super soldier, zombie, monster things, and, again, had to get it twice to get both discs, but got it. And, yeah, so eager to check that out. And, I just absolutely love that cover. I love the font, like, it's obviously very dramatic, very kind of creepy, and I love the blood, but with the parachuting stuff there, I love it. And I like period films in general, and I like, you know, period horror films. And then we got a movie called Phoenix Forgotten, which is like a sci-fi found footage film. I know where to get the slipcover for this, so I will track it down. Again, had to get it twice, but whatever. And it's from, this was a Scott Free production, which is Ridley Scott's production company, so he's credited as one of the producers. Next up, I had never heard of this film before I went browsing, but it had our dear, the third live-action film, Spider-Man, Tom Holland in it, and that's a movie called Pilgrimage here, so eager to see what else he does, because I think he's very talented. But yeah, a movie called Pilgrimage there, and I know that this has a slip as well. Next up, I saw this movie in the theater. Glad to finally have gotten it at a reasonable price, but I will need to track down the Blu-ray and the slip separately, and that is Pokemon Detective Pikachu, excuse me. Saw this in the theater with my now ex-fiancé, and we both really liked it. I think that it definitely captured it's probably one of the best video game films ever made, and I love the way that they made the Pokemon look. I think that they all looked like they're supposed to. They're not supposed to look like real animals, so they didn't pull a Sonic the Hedgehog bullshit, which, again, thank you, Paramount, for fixing it. But, they knew that they needed to make the characters look like how they normally should look, but I really liked how they made the world of Pokemon look. I love the mystery plot. I like that they do explain why this particular Pikachu can talk, and I won't spoil why that is, but the explanation that they have for it makes sense relative to the story that they set up, and it was fun. And at first I was like, really, Ryan Reynolds voicing a Pikachu? But again, as it unfolds, it makes sense. But yeah, if you're a fan of Pokemon, especially like the first generation of it, like I was right there on the ground floor of Generation 1 when it came out, and if you're a fan of that, then definitely check this out. And I like the fact that it references the events of Pokemon the first movie, so it doesn't ignore the fact that those movies had that continuity, that it happened. So that was a good touch. And I saw this movie in the theater too. I'm going to have to track down the Blu-ray and the slip separately, and that is the 2017 Power Rangers film. I really dug this movie a lot. it was what I wanted it to be. Like, it was darker, it was more mature, it kind of had to retcon some character traits into existence that were not really there in the original show. I didn't want it to be like the original show. I wanted it to be more grown up, and it was. Now, I will say that I really liked the film from the character level. I thought that they managed to really have a really good kind of dramatic film about how hard teenagers have it today in the world of, like, just it had a very kind of John Hughes Breakfast Club feel, but on the more dramatic end of that film, because it was a comedy drama. The actual Power Rangers stuff towards the end, there's not as much of it as I think a lot of people were wanting, and myself included. But again, I will say that the character aspects of this film I thought really were more phenomenal, as they say. And this film introduced me to Naomi Scott, who went on to play Jasmine in the Aladdin live action film. I thought the cast was so good. I really liked the different aspects of these characters that they brought to light. Like, I like the different troubles that they give them. Like, with this Jason being kind of like a redneck almost, and like Kimberly having a sexting scandal, and this version of Zach being kind of a smartass and a bit of a kind of sort of delinquent, having this version of Trini being struggling with her sexuality, being lesbian or bi, or I forget what she is, and then having Billy, who's on the autism spectrum, and all these different things that really, I think, relate to the way that teenagers are today and all the struggles that they have to go through. And I did like that version of Rita too. I'm sad that they aren't continuing this continuity anymore, but at least we'll have this as it is. Now I can understand why, like, maybe kids didn't like it, or why adults that don't like a darker take on these characters, why they wouldn't like it, but I thought it was great for what it was. Next up, we're getting close. Rage with Nicolas Cage. Rage Cage. Gonna have to track down the slip for that one, but this was another Nicolas Cage action film. And we got a Jesse Eisenberg film set in Nazi Germany. There's a lot of Nazi stuff that I've gotten lately, and that is a movie called Resistance with the slipcover from Shout Factory. How cool is that? And then, what's that on the inside, besides the disc? The disc there. It's Jesse Eisenberg as a mime. The horror. But yeah, I've heard the checkout person at Family Video said she really liked this one, so have to see how that goes. I wanted to see this at the time because my friends were really into Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and they were really into Hunter S. Thompson. I never saw it, but I wanted to, and that was The Rum Diary, which is an adaptation of another Hunter S. Thompson book. And I've read the book Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. I'll have to check this film/book out, and also Where the Buffalo Roam, and some of the other works that Hunter S. Thompson has done. Really, really great writer, really unique. He was one of a kind, he really was. Next up, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, which I heard was pretty darn good. It has the slipcover here, but it does not have the Blu-ray disc, but I'll have to track it down separately. But yeah, pretty cool. And I heard it was a good, good kind of horror anthology. And again, I haven't seen it. I remembered the books, the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, those books with the illustrations. Man, are those illustrations scary. And those books were aimed at children, and yet those illustrations are scary by adult standards. I was like, how did they get away with this? It was a different time. And then we got our dear Shaun of the Sheep from Aardman Animation, and absolutely love Aardman Animation, and I love the look of the characters, their sense of humor. I think they look really cute, so there you go. Gotta find the slipcover for that one. This one might have a slip, I don't know, but it's a movie called Still Alice. This was the one that got Julianne Moore finally got her a Best Actress award. And it's about, she has early onset Alzheimer's, so, it's kind of rough stuff there, but important. nonetheless. And then we got our dear Nicole Kidman in a movie called Strangerland, which I believe that this has a slip also. And it's got Joseph Fiennes and Hugo Weaving, who I really love as well. And then we got, this is another crappy reprint cover, but of Sucker Punch, which, now I did get this in a really early unboxing video, but what I found was that the disc I had was rental only. This one is not, so this one has the special features that the other one didn't have. And there's a really cool custom cover for it. Well, I had one, but I sold that version of it, but I can print off another one as I choose. There's probably more than one, for all I know. But it's got our dear, whatever her name is, Emily Browning in there, who, you know, pretty nice there. And you remember Tekken 1 that we got last time? Well, there's Tekken 2 right there. It's Kazuya's Revenge. So yeah, I got both of the Tekken films. At least one of these has a slip. They might both have it. I will have to track them down. Got To Rome with Love, the 2012 Woody Allen film that has Alec Baldwin and Jesse Eisenberg and Penelope Cruz, Greta Gerwig, Ellen Page, all kinds of great people in there. Woody Allen's sort of on the outs these days, just because of all this old stuff that's come back, and I'm not really sure how to feel about it, because, like, at first, I knew about it when I was getting into his films, but then, like, in the wake of, you know, Me Too and everything, I was, like, you know, just really, just kind of dismayed that he didn't really seem to acknowledge the pain that Ronan Farrow and everyone that they were feeling. But then again, after talking to some friends, it was like, well, if it in fact wasn't true, and I mean the court said that it wasn't, you know, he was not found guilty or anything, but you know, it's like, if it wasn't true, then if I were him, I probably wouldn't acknowledge it either, and would just move on with my life. So I mean, and I've apparently, from someone who read like his book and read other aspects of the case, I haven't really dived into it that much in the way that a friend of mine did. Apparently there's more to the story than either side wants to say, like, or that it's not like a perfect cut and dry case, and in fact, like, there might be more evidence in Woody Allen's favor. I know for a fact that there's a lot of people who've worked with him who want to distance themselves from him, and other people like Scarlett Johansson who've stood by him all the way through. So it's not cut and dry either way. I really don't know, but again, as a filmmaker, he was really, really influential for me and a lot of other people. So, you know, still worth studying and acknowledging. Finally, last film in this entire haul is a movie called The Young Messiah, which I wanted to see since I first heard about it, and it was produced partially by Chris Columbus, which is interesting, and adapted from the novel by Anne Rice, which attempts to kind of fill in some of the missing years of Jesus' childhood, which is interesting. Had to buy it twice again to get both discs. Got to find the slipcover somehow. But yeah, I remembered hearing about that, and I was like, that's kind of interesting. I am tired, folks. My neck hurts, my legs hurt, my voice hurts. I gotta get some more throat lubrication. Hopefully you enjoyed that, so if you liked it, please like, share, subscribe. Hit the bell icon, set phasers to stun, warp factor 5. I will see you in the next video. And so continue to stay safe. Was there a family video that's closing around near where you are? And if so, then did you pick up anything cool? Let me know in the comments below. And I am gonna lay on the floor and go to sleep. So good night, folks.